Welcome to the Anxious Love Coach podcast, a place for creating meaningful, conscious, secure, long-term partnerships. Here, we talk relationship anxiety and creating healthy, magnetic dynamics within partnership to help you feel confident and alive within committed partnership. My name is Natalie Kennedy, and I'm your host. I'm a relationship anxiety coach and meditation teacher. I've worked with hundreds of clients battling anxiety, and after experiencing extraordinary shifts in my own healing relative to partnership, now combine my lived personal experience and professional training to help others trust themselves within relationship and in their lives. I've been to the edge and back with my now husband from relationship anxiety and come out confidently to the other side. I want to pass the tools I've learned along to you to help you trust yourself in relationships and also create magnetic, hot dynamics with your partner. I believe lots of mainstream relationship advice today can make us anxious and dissatisfied. So let's jump in and normalize challenges that modern relationships and real people go through while also giving you tools to trust yourself, drop the shame, and alchemize your messy, twisted relational truths into profound inner wisdom and aliveness. If you haven't yet, be sure to join my communities over on Instagram, TikTok, and YouTube at Anxious Love Coach. You can also request a 30-minute relationship anxiety assessment with me depending on availability, or ask me a question over on my website at www.anxiouslovecoach.com. I've also got a wonderful relationship anxiety meditation available to you as thanks for subscribing to my email list. Thanks for being here and enjoy this episode. Hey, this is your girl Natalie, coming lazily straight onto her iPhone voice notes to let you know that I am currently on maternity leave in terms of podcasting, and that the episode that you're about to listen to is a replay based on some of my most popular episodes. I will probably not record any new podcasting content until May or June, so in the meantime, please enjoy some of these old episodes. Maybe you've never heard them before, or you've heard them, but you'll get something new out of it this time around. Please give me some grace in case there are some outdated offers or outdated stories, but I will also include some information at the very end of the episode for ways that you can still get support from me beyond this episode. I'm not going completely off the grid. I still plan to have smaller spaces where I share some things, so I'll share that with you at the very end of the episode. Thanks so much for understanding, and I hope you enjoy this recording.
All right. Hello, everybody. Welcome back to the Anxious Love Coach podcast. Today's episode is a juicy one. I have a guest and dear friend back on this podcast. Her name is Luci Lampe, and today we are going to be talking about a couple of things. Primarily how neediness is actually a beautiful gift in your relationship, and also how self-pleasure is the tool to your sexual awakening. Many of us who are in long-term relationships find ourselves in a position where we feel kind of, maybe bored is the right word. That's the word that's coming up for me. Maybe there's a better one, but we'll go with that. And we unconsciously might start expecting our partners to be the source of our turn on. But in reality, the turn on happens in your brain first and foremost. And we want to start getting creative and juicy and igniting the match from within. And we would love to just see where this goes today. I'm having a little bit of a sexual awakening. Hello, Luci. It's good to see you again.
Oh my gosh, my face hurts from smiling already.
Me too. How are you this morning?
I'm doing well. It's been an interesting week and a lot of really unsettling kind of energies and things coming up. And it wasn't just my dental work pending. It was just one piece of it. But we can get more into that. Yeah.
Well, we're here and let's see. We shall see how this unfolds. If you listen to my last episode, I talked about my women's retreat and how that ignited a bunch of just sensual energy, and which I think is the gateway towards sexual energy. So for me, I just started noticing a lot more sensation in the body. I started noticing more pleasure. I started feeling more desire for connection with women. And I can see in hindsight a connection with the feminine. And so I had started going there. And recently I started noticing that my partner has been moving more into his masculine energy. And that is bringing up a lot of feelings and new sensations, new emotions that have been lying dormant for a long time. As I navigate that and figure out how I'm going to talk about that, it's hard to be decisive and directive when you're like really in your feminine, which is where I'm at right now. But I contacted Luci and after the retreat and said, like, what do I do with all this newfound energy? And she said, go take my course. Okay. So I over the last few weeks, I've been taking Luci's Come As You Are course, which is a self-pleasure practice course. And it has just been phenomenal. I am discovering sensations that I didn't even know were there. I've gotten past numbness. I've had certain types of orgasms that I haven't been able to have by myself or with my partner. And my partner is currently abroad and I can't even show him the new thing happening in my body. And I'm just like, I'm in agony, to be honest. But I think I would rather lean back today and kind of let you talk about your process of what you began to discover as you committed to your own self-pleasure practice.
Also, for those who might be listening and are going through an awakening of their feminine after having to be in their, like, have their shield up for a long time, for whatever the reason. I mean, we've all got our stories, right? We've all got our things that have happened that kind of made us have to take on that masculine presence, or even just like more cautious energy, or just not really letting others in or letting ourselves into our own pleasure. That's really the biggest thing. Because once we begin to crack into that, everything can open up. But yeah,
I wish for, oh my God.
Yeah, it's just like with anything, when you begin to, such a great classic example that I think will really resonate with the collective right now is like if the feminine collectively has been silenced and put aside and put down, and then they begin to awaken, and it's on this other end of the pendulum, right? We're swinging to the other end of the pendulum where we're like, we can do everything and anything, and we don't need anybody, and we're so independent, and we can do it all ourselves. And like, I can be the mom, and I can do the housework, and I can do the work, and I can make the money, and I can initiate sex, and I can do all these. But then it's like, you continue to expand your being and your consciousness and have these experiences that keep calling you to different experiences that you didn't even know were possible, or that maybe even judged other people for being in that space. Like when I first got into feminist ideals and like movements, I was so critical of women who didn't work, women who would let their husbands take care of them, or women who chose to be a stay-at-home mom and not have a side job and like genuinely enjoy just being with their kids, or women who were too quote unquote feminine, too sexy, too revealing, too like loose in their bodies. And, it was like, there was a lot of resistance there. Yeah, there's resistance where we haven't owned this very energy within ourselves. And so something that, and I can't even pinpoint exactly what it was that inspired me to make the decision to start a self-pleasure practice. It wasn't one singular thing that I was like, I just need to masturbate and it's all going to get better.
Yeah, I couldn't do it. It was a gradual, like a slow acceleration into it is what's happening.
Yeah. And then it becomes the next natural step. And that doesn't mean that it's still not out of our comfort zone. It was definitely out of my comfort zone, especially because there was so much resistance in my marriage of over a decade. Yeah, still over a decade at the time. That my body, because our bodies remember everything. And my body just had this physical response to masturbation, unless I was so sorely not getting my physical needs met, which at the same time, I was just resentful of having to have sex out of obligation because we're married, like just the perfect storm of things. That's really what would bring me to masturbate, or I would do it out of revenge. Like, we're having a fight, I'm going to go in my closet and masturbate, because anyways, that really detracts from the relationship. And it's like weaponizing sex, weaponizing your pleasure. And that just does not work. So when get these comments, especially on TikTok, when people see one of my videos for the first time, and you know how it is. And they're like, I know everything about what you are just from this one video.
Yeah.
And like,
So true.
Masturbation. Yeah.
So the representation of everything that I hate.
But these comments of, in a nutshell, that masturbation has been used as retaliation. And that's the only way that they've ever experienced it, or that they use it as retaliation when their wife said no, things like that. And so there is so much healing to be done around simply self-pleasure for both men and women and everybody. There's still so much stigma about it. And in the Come Together course, I'm going to be talking more about the role of masturbation in partnership, because both partners do benefit from that. Our pleasure is created from within by us connecting with our own energy, and really at the deepest, purest level, connecting with source energy, with the God energy. But there's nothing more blissful than that. And so when you're able to feel that, and pleasure is so much more than just about playing with genitals and having orgasms. It's an entire approach to life. It's a way of life. And what I began to notice when I started self-pleasuring every day, which for me, in my very directive, masculine, setting a goal space, was so happy with, I'm going to do this every day, just like I eat my greens and do my workout or whatever. That definitely served in creating that container. And that discipline is still to this day necessary for me to keep showing up, because some days I'm like, well, I got other stuff to do, or it's nice outside. Maybe I'll just do that and then see what happens. Because I know that if I don't commit to it, just like with any discipline, I know me, I'm going to end up just putting it off and then beat myself up about it later. Yeah. So now it's very nuanced. Like if you're on vacation or traveling or things, there are different ways to adapt to the ritual. What I noticed is that I had so much resistance in my body.
A resistance to beginning the practice, or a resistance once you had started, or both?
Oh, like once I had started, because when I made the decision to start, I was set on it. Like, okay, this is the thing I'm going to do. I've decided when I put my mind to something, I do it. There's no, that's just how I roll. But I'm like, that we can do anything. We can also be like an agonizing desire for what we long for. It's both things can be true. And it's so wild. But no, it was more so in the practice itself. Like I noticed as I would begin to touch myself and discover numb areas or uncomfortable areas or spots that made me go, what is that? Is that from that scar that I had from 5 years ago from childbirth? Like it was just all these moments for like finally being present with what's there. And then when I began to awaken more sensations in my physical body, a lot more emotions began to open up. The body holds on to these different experiences, right, somatically. And even the way we talk about it physiologically in the fascia. And so as I started doing the de-armoring process and feeling more, then the next thing was I felt so much resistance to feeling so good.
Yes. I get that. Is it safe to want as much as I do? Is it safe to hunger this much?
Yeah. Is it safe to even just physically feel this good? What have I done to deserve it? Like, why me? If I'm not suffering like all these other people around me, then I'm not as relatable. They're not going to like me. They're going to think that all I care about is like masturbating and feeling good. And so I just had to get to this point where it was like, and so what if they do? And so what if I'm not as relatable?
Right.
Is that the space I want to be in? Am I willing to sacrifice my next depth of well-being and pleasure and abundance and harmony and love and peace just so that I can be more relatable to people who are hurting? Because the truth is that we are of a higher service to people when we are more in alignment with love.
So true. And it's so profound that you're sharing this, because it's hitting home for me very much. My whole business has been founded on like, it's normal to sometimes feel like shit in your relationship. It's normal to like not feel attraction and desire. And it's actually through this practice that my intense desire is starting to surface. And I'm terrified of where that's going to take Anxious Love Coach, because I'm worried that people are going to look at me and be like, oh, wow. Okay. Can't
You're
relate.
better than us now, huh?
Yeah, you're better than us now, huh? Like, oh, you're so happy. We can't relate to that. I almost formed an identity out of my own martyrdom in relationship. And to like stop doing that.
Ooh, it is scary. It is.
Yeah.
You and I first came into each other's world when I was more on the cusp of, I was really in the thick of sharing more heavily about shadow work and working through trauma.
Yeah.
And the heavy, dark, stuff. And which is still very much a part of what I do personally and also with people. But the focus shifted. Because for me, at that part of my journey, I was afraid to let people in on the pleasure as much and let people see the pleasure. Even though I had pussy powered, I was like, I'm not going to focus on that.
If you are all in your pleasure, you activate people's envy, people's resentment that they don't have that.
Yeah.
And they're just going to say, oh, you must just naturally be that way. You're so lucky. You're so privileged. Oh, you have this perfect life that allows you to masturbate all the time. People's projections just march their way onto you. I'm sure you get that.
But one of my favorites is, well, she must not have kids or a life. I'm like, okay. Yep.
That's 4.
That's not new. Yeah. So it's really just, we make time for what we truly believe is important, is valuable. And it's beyond what is important to us. It's like, if I really know deep down that this is going to add so much to my life every day, not only that, but that if I don't do it, I feel the impact of its absence. And so does everybody around me.
Right.
And so,
you're suffering.
Yes. And so the more embodied in my pleasure I am, the more I have to give to my kids, to my husband, and to the people that see my content, the stuff that we create within our businesses and just every day in our lives. And there's so much revealed to me about my own resistance to feeling pleasure. And I have felt this at different depths throughout the years. And most recently, it's most intensely in my mind because it's freshest in my memory, right? And stuff most recently was about 5 weeks ago, 4 or 5. It was before I launched the course, but I was in the pre-registration part of it for Come As You Are. And I'm just sitting there, I do all my rituals every morning. I set my intentions and I have my favorite crystals and I do like all my things, right? And my little journaling and my Palo Santo that I got from Peru, from my motherland, like all these things that I'm going to do. And yet, again, this resistance to actually calling these certain things into my experience. And so I'm sitting here doing these rituals. Hey, let's have like a really amazing launch and like get this program out to this many women and doing all my manifestation stuff. And then I do my self-pleasure thing. And like, this is pretty insane because I have manifested some really incredible stuff doing this. But the universe was like, bitch, you got to go deeper. You're ready for the next step here. And I remember I got to this point and it was 3 consecutive days that this happened to me, that I was doing my self-pleasure ritual. I got to this point of this explosive, like earth-shattering orgasm. Oh my God. And usually I would like slow down at that point and just like come to a stop. But I felt this something in me was like, you got to keep going. Like, do not stop. I was like, it's just crazy. Like, it's going to be too much pleasure. I can't take that much pleasure.
Well, painful even.
Or painful. Well, yes. And so I have had that physical issue in the past, which is one of the several reasons that did eventually nudge me to doing a self-pleasure practice, because I do have a scar on part of my clit from one of my childbirths. And so I can only like do direct stimulation for so long, and I can't use those super big, intense vibrators. I just can't. It will literally like just destroy me. I have some bad stories about that. No, I'm not going to show them. Okay.
So, anyways, too much pleasure.
But for too much pleasure.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, and even pain. So I thought, well, first thought is I don't want to be in pain. Second thought really is the deeper thing. Oh, this is what's going on. I am scared to receive even more pleasure because I feel like there's like this little valve inside that's like, oh, you've had enough. Let's shut it off.
Right. Don't be too greedy.
Yeah. Yeah. Like, no, this is enough. You're good. You're good. And so for me to let myself keep going and have these, like I had some really deep activations. It's not about the depth of how far you're going in with your wand with this kind of experience. It was like an energetic, just like a deeper level of a more like just I don't even know how to explain it. It's like my whole consciousness just shifted in those experiences. And I had to take the week to just kind of feel through it and like integrate the whole experience that I had those 3 days. It can be such a powerful space to do all of this really deep shadow work, actually, just in a different form.
Yeah. For our listeners who don't know what shadow work is, especially when you're in terms of self-pleasuring.
Yes.
Would you be willing to describe what that might be, what that looks like?
Yes, of course. The shadow is whatever has been unacknowledged or repressed or judged, shamed, or put to the side, parts of our psyche and our unconscious that we're just not aware of. So it's really just making what's unknown known, bringing it to the light. It doesn't make it bad. It doesn't make it wrong or lesser than. So within a pleasure practice, a lot of these shadow aspects are revealed, such as, my greediness, right? My selfishness, my neediness,
Neediness, yeah.
all of these things. And then you get to be present with that and physically, somatically practice moving energy through that experience and creating a new experience in the body where you can physically remember the sensations of pleasure and ease and peace and self-soothing. I heard a quote the other day from my pelvic floor specialist that pelvic work is the deepest form of shadow work. It's at the root as far as the energy centers go. Without that root activated and alive and open, I'm not going to talk about open chakras, but you know what I mean? Just having that energy awakened, it's just not going to, you can have a whole well-functioning system.
Yeah. I'm saying this now and I'm like, holy shit, I'm getting this 10 years into a long-term relationship just now. If it's stuck, if just that's stuck, like everything gets stuck.
Yeah.
Yeah. And it's not easy to get unstuck. It's not like to face your shit, your resistance, your shame, your fear, the agony that's going to come up when you linger in those places.
Yeah.
It's beautiful though.
It's in that void that we find so much of our power.
So true. Yeah. If you're listening right now and you're like, I have no idea where to start with a self-pleasure practice, what would you recommend?
Well, I did create a whole course for it. So there's that.
We will link that.
Definitely that. I got the idea for that in one of my self-pleasure rituals. Like I get the idea for like 99% of everything that I put out into the world. Interesting little sidetrack.
Yeah.
But really it just, even if you just create some time for yourself every day, it doesn't have to be a long time. You can just turn on your favorite song, one song, and let yourself feel the pleasure of listening to the music, feel the pleasure of being in your body, breathing in your body, moving in your body. Maybe even watching yourself in the mirror if that's not a detractor, right? Because we're different layers everyone's working through. And just gently like stroking your body, maybe grounding touch, maybe some like really soft feather-like touch, feeling different parts of your body, noticing how your body responds. It doesn't have to be really complex. Especially for the women who have a lot of resistance to just touching themselves or physical touch at all. A lot of people who have experienced a lot of trauma or any degree of trauma will feel this unsafety in their body of just being touched. making it a small, consistent practice.
It's not good. Like you go from not having, and this is like that resistance you have to push through. At least it has been from my experience within your course also, but also before. It's not like you go from being completely turned off to being completely turned on. It's like building up your level of tolerance for bigger and bigger waves within yourself.
Yeah.
I think
You're
that's
building your capacity.
like, that's what's been it for me. And at first it was dealing with the big layers of shame and the big layers of rage, like some of the most agonizing, turn me inside out kind of rage. And like, and it's not just like one of the things in my programs is, and I got this from my teacher. She said, don't do the dance. Or if you don't want to say, a lot of people think dance means like looking good. It's not that. It's just about letting life move itself through the vessel that is your body.
Yeah.
You're not doing the dance. You're not doing the movement. You be it. You be the dance. You be the movement. The movement does you, actually. It's like, if rage is here, what does it want to borrow your body for? How would it express itself through you? And so for me, being with the stuff that comes up, it's like being with the shame. Well, what does that look like? Does it contort itself into a child's pose and then just like writhe and shake? Does it, So it's very like impulsive movement. We often think being impulsive is bad, but in a somatic experience, it's the best thing, with that safe container.
Exactly.
And then as I learned to love, as I got to know my shame and know my resistance and know my fear and know my rage and all these, in knowing them deeply, you actually set yourself free from the cage that those things are.
Yeah.
And that you can love them. And when you can love them, you can love the next thing. And then you can love the next thing. And then pretty soon you start loving the stuff that is really exciting, like the big waves of, but you have to get through almost like this queue. How we have like a Spotify queue. You have to get through this like queue of
the process
of stuff in the way.
Yeah. And that's a big part of just trusting the process, because there is what you want to be next, what you wish was next, and what is actually next.
Right. Yeah. Teal Swan had this. I know you like Teal Swan because that's one of the things I noticed when back in the day when you were seeing a lot more about shadow work, you would quote her a lot. And one of the things that she said was there's a big difference between I'm scared and I don't want to, and I'm scared, but I want to. And when you're working with I'm scared and I don't want to, you got to back off and be with that until it feels safe enough. And then it might move into I'm scared, but I want to. And then like just gently tread. And like you have to be willing to lead yourself well and listen to that little part inside that's like I scared, but wanting to, and like constantly checking in with yourself and responding to what arises. That's been true for me.
That's such a really important part of this process, because you will over and over again come face to face with next steps that are scary. And for me, my personal meter, just historically speaking, has been, this is terrifying. And also this is so exciting. And it's like both things, because there's so much unknown and uncertainty, and also just, but what if it works? What if this comes from it instead of, because the more we take those leaps and it works out in our favor, because everything really is ultimately working out for us, it becomes less of a, well, what if it goes wrong? What if I mess up? What if I made the wrong decision? And more of, what if this really goes amazingly?
Like you need to witness yourself doing the scary thing and seeing everything.
Yeah.
One of the things that has been coming up for me, and I think it's going to help us transition into the next kind of topic that I would love to discuss with you, is like, I was so afraid to let myself feel joy, and not just joy, but joy to the level that it's possible to feel joy. Like, does my body even exist? I am so connected to the universe. Joy, like loss of self almost. And when you do that, you're touching the infinite. And when you're touching the infinite, you're touching the void, the limitless desire that exists inside you. And I definitely felt that edge that you're discussing, which is like the most incredible pleasure, and simultaneously this like absolutely gut-wrenching, stomach twisting fear of abandonment because I'm like, is it safe to suddenly desire sex this much? Is it safe to suddenly want as much, money and abundance? Is that safe?
Yeah.
And, I think, and that translates to kind of this neediness that is arising. Because inevitably, just because this is one of those hard to swallow truths. Just because you want it, just because you need it, doesn't mean you will always get it right when you want it.
Yeah.
And what do you do in the moments when your needs aren't met? Do you go out and you try and force other people to meet your needs against their will?
I think you know the answer to that.
With your rapey energy?
You will meet my needs, or I will threaten you and get my needs met elsewhere. God, have I heard that from so many people also on TikTok.
Wow.
The place, the wonderful thing. Really
So asking for a friend, what do you do with the neediness? What fork do we do with that? When that's where you're at and you're like, oh, wow, I'm needy as fuck. And that's been so for a long time. I've been, even on my Instagram and my TikToks and my podcasts, I've been talking so much about, meeting your needs yourself and like being, loving yourself and being independent. It's like, okay, I know how to do that. And it's like never enough.
And it's not meant to be enough. And there's this, again, where multiple things can be true at once. This thing, both of these things can be true at once. Like, yes, I can meet my needs and like survive and have a happy life. But then when it comes at the cost of even acknowledging that I have more desires and more needs and more wants and more longings, that I'm just afraid to let myself go there. That's the only reason I'm not really feeling like I need anything from anybody. Then it's, so much more potential there in having this fuller experience of life. And I don't know about anybody else, but I'm here to have this full experience of life, which includes a lot of this. Yeah, because, I'll tell you why. Because it's easier. It's more comfortable to play it safe, to just let yourself want what is reasonable or practical or within your reach. And so it's extremely vulnerable. Our desires are the most vulnerable thing I have come to experience, at least for myself. Fear, I thought sharing my fears with another person was the most vulnerable thing. Like, oh, now you know what I'm scared of. Are you going to use it against me? Are you going to throw it in my face later in like a fight or something, But what I've come to find is pleasure is so much more vulnerable, because not just letting others witness us in our pleasure, but also letting ourselves want. So wrapped in that is this desire, the longing, the infinitely, let's call it greedy universe that resides within us. That is, you think about this, the universe is expansive. It's ever expansive. It's really fucking greedy. Yeah. It's like more and more. Let's create more and more. Let's create more life or more and more. So why would we think that we are different than that? And why would we label that as bad? So where it becomes painful in like not in the agonizing desire way, but in a way that creates chaos and destruction, is when we are unable or do not build our capacity for our own desire and too muchness. And or when we coerce other people to fulfill our needs for whatever reason. And there is nothing that reflects this quite as clearly and powerfully with as many opportunities for growth as an intimate relationship does. And for us, through many seasons, I have spent a couple solid years of really resisting Ryan's neediness, especially before I became more awakened in this way to my own sexual energy and desire. It felt like he just always needed to take from me.
Yeah.
Needed to take sex, take intimacy, take my time, take my energy, and which, comes with a whole slew of things like resentment, lots of resentment, losing trust with my own body, because I'm just going to give it up now, even though I don't feel like it. And it's a multi-layered thing. But all that to say, it wasn't until I began to honestly look at my own neediness and just let myself hate it. Just let myself
Hate the fact that you're needy.
hate that I'm needy. Yeah, because it went from I'm not needy, you're needy. Okay, I know that you're what I see in you is a reflection of what exists in me, but I'm not needy like you are. I'm not, And Ryan would tell me, like, if you only saw how needy you are, it just doesn't show up the way that my neediness shows up. I'm like, no,
Damn. Yep.
not
I
needy.
get that.
Don't have needs. It's like, okay, well, would you consider the possibility, like using coaching language, really getting close to each other all the time? Would you consider the possibility that you are needy and you just don't see it? I'm like, I will consider the possibility.
Me? Needy? No, I'm fine. You're needy.
God. And so it's
Yep.
just being present with that. And when you have a layer of curtains, we have these big ass curtains in our house now. And there's like a solid layer. There's another layer that's like a little bit sheer. And there's like a really sheer one for, I don't know what these fancy curtains are. But you feel like, you're like, oh, I can see a little bit more through the veil. And then you see a little bit more. And then you get to the window and you're like, oh my God, I see it. I didn't know that was there. Yeah. And letting myself see that and just fucking hate it. And then make peace with it.
You realize like how easily someone can break you.
Yes. And how vulnerable you are. You realize just how vulnerable and
freaking weak you are.
Yeah. It's that vulnerability and the fragility.
Yeah.
Which also, again, at the same time, we can be so strong and so whole and so self-sufficient and also frail and vulnerable. And that's just called being human. And I think when we really wrestle with that, because we're like, how can we be both? We just are. And so the whole thing of meeting is, then I went through a phase of separating kinds of neediness. Like, oh, there's this neediness where it's hot and it's sexy and it's okay. And then there's this neediness where it's desperation and it's coercion and it's guilt tripping people. I just couldn't reconcile in my mind and heart yet that it's really all the same things. It can't be. This one's right and this one's wrong.
Yeah, I haven't gotten there yet, but I appreciate you saying that.
Yeah.
Right now I'm desperate. I'm wrong. This is not lovable. Because let's be real. I remember in high school, I remember hearing boys talk about girls that were too needy.
Yeah. Like clingy.
Clingy.
Yeah.
Yeah. And they would be like, ugh. And I would break up with her over it because she was so needy. And so I internalized the perfect woman has no needs. And so, in a way that manifested as me being this like independent woman that is going to put no burden on a man. And so as a result, you manifest a partner that actually wants something from you. As it's like a form. He wants to take the independent woman and make her needy. And I'm like, no, I don't need you. I don't need you at all. And in a way, I think it can lead to relationship ambivalence or relationship anxiety because in my experience, my hyper independence and my shadow aspect was my neediness. Like, I don't need you. I don't need you. It's not realistic for me to expect and therefore want you to meet me sexually, spiritually, emotionally. And therefore, I'm just going to not want that. But then you're going to want a woman who wants that. And so as a result, my partner would become needy and I would be like, ew.
Yeah. Like, where's this coming from? Or at some point, like you see somebody or have an experience or an encounter with another person or couple or an event or something that awakens that. And you're like, oh, shit, I do want this.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
While there is like the neediness is the neediness, right? The thing that we're really afraid of is how it's going to impact the person or person.
Are they going to reject or
the relationship? Yeah, they're not going to like this. They're going to leave. This is too much. This is whatever. And when we go through all these stories that come up, maybe in those moments, there is a difference between recognizing that all the neediness is really all just the same big pot of neediness, and we are all of that. And then there is a conscious decision of how am I going to bring this into the world? How am I going to move through this? And how am I going to express this? Or am I going to express this?
Right. Time
in this context.
Oh.
Yeah. And that just comes with the practice. It comes with practice in business world, what they would call, failing forward, although they're all just their lessons. And if you're with a partner that is in it to grow through things with you, then you can become even more deeply connected through those quote unquote failures or ruptures. And then the repair even makes you more solid as a couple. There was a time, I'm going to say maybe 3 weeks ago. 3 weeks ago, it was a Tuesday. All of my breakdowns have been happening on Tuesdays. So it was a Tuesday and there was no particular thing that triggered it. I don't know. It was just like weird. I don't know what's happening with the planets. I don't remember the astrology silly, but I was like, this day, it's just, I don't feel so, and what is it? Like, why do I feel so much angst? And I also know, to track my cycle and my hormones affect things differently. But I was also like, I should be feeling good today because I'm in my, ovulatory. And it's wrong in me. So I should be feeling my neck. Right. My skin should be glowing. Why am I trying? And stuff? Just like nonstop. So I felt I felt so needy. More needy than I have felt in a long time, because you get to a place where you make peace with your neediness and your longing and your desire. And it begins to feel more like longing. You begin to embody it more as longing and this beautiful desire instead of scarcity. I'm just needing things again. But I was feeling this like so intensely. And Ryan could tell the energy was a little off. He's very good at noticing these things. Actually, that was a trauma response from his childhood, but still he's very intuitive. To like the woman. Hypervigilance was like a gift. Yeah. So he noticed and he was like, "Are you okay?" And I said, I don't think so, but I don't know why. And he's like, "Okay, well, let me know if there's anything I can do." And I just was, I don't know, feeling so unsettled about that. Like, I have so many things I want him to do for me today. And I have so many needs, not only just around the house, and with the kids, but like sexually and emotionally. And I felt this calling inside to just be with it and not ask him for anything. I'm like, I'm finally comfortable with asking him for what I need. What the fuck, And so that whole day I spent just in the void of letting myself feel all of these needs and want all of these things and not have any of them fulfilled by anybody else. And I feel like that was such an important part. Yeah, it was such an important process for me that day to grow my own capacity for my longing and for the angsty feeling of needs. And the next day, Ryan actually experienced that for himself. Because at the end of that day, we were walking and he's like, "Yeah, well, had a pretty bummer of an impact on me today." And, that's because he gets to speak his experience too. And like, I know that was part of the hard thing for me to make the decision to sit with us today alone, because I don't want you to feel shut out. I want to be happier around you. I want to feel like free and excited and alive around you. But today, this was really important for me to do. And then we just had an honest conversation about it. No fights or anything. Just, he shared his disappointment and I shared my experience of the day. And the next day he had the same experience, but in his own way. And he was like, "Oh my God, I see you." Yeah.
And that's so beautiful. One of the things I've been noticing recently is how the universe divinely orchestrates it so that you can experience both sides of a dynamic. I've been on this kind of very hyper independent place for a long time where it's like, I don't need anything. I can fulfill all my own needs, or I can source them from other people. My needs will always get met. I have impeccable communication skills, so I know exactly how to get my needs met, when and why. And I can communicate my intentions, and I want to lead a whole workshop on perfect communication.
Yes.
I never have to go let your needs met.
Having your needs. Yeah.
Yeah. And like now I'm in this place where it's like, oh no, I'm now touching the neediness that is infinite. And there's literally no amount of anything you could ever do to fill that place.
It's literally insatiable.
Yeah. And there's no amount of communication tools to satisfy it. It's just pure emotion and pure body and it's pure energy. Like I can't. That's why I'm speechless the last couple weeks. His husband's gone. He's traveling. He's all like hanging out with his bros, and I'm finding that very attractive. But he's not talking to me as much because he's living his life. And I'm like, would you be willing to give me some reassurance that we are okay? And he's like, I love you. We are okay. I can't wait to hug you when we get home. And I'm like, thank you for meeting that need, and it's not enough. It'll never be enough. You can say I love you infinitely, and it will still not be enough because I'm now in touch with my desire that came about through my sexual awakening recently.
Yeah.
And Lucy, what the fuck? There was nothing
I know, right?
anybody could do on this planet that could fill that spot.
Yeah.
Because it's infinite.
And this is not to scare any of you. Okay. You're like, I don't even want to get this.
I don't want to do this.
Miserable. No, but I promise it is worth it. It is so
It is
worth
worth
it
it.
because there's nothing like feeling that aliveness and being so connected to your desire and to the very fabric of your existence that connects you with all living things. And it's like, I wouldn't trade that for anything. I would experience this angst every day if I need to. And sometimes I do, but to the point that it doesn't feel I don't feel like I just call it on myself all the time. Those experiences are few and far between now. But when you first begin to experience it, it's like all new. It's all new. This is a completely different experience that you are being. And of course it's gonna feel unsettling. And then you slowly integrate all of these little experiences along the way, and your physiological nervous system begins to recalibrate to this new way of being. And I mean, it's a process. You cannot rush it, but when you're in it, like you were saying, Natalie, like the dance. And sometimes I just need to go throw a little toddler tantrum in my closet, right? Because I'm feeling so many things. And sometimes I can talk myself like, okay, you're safe. I do this grounding thing where I press down on my chest, like on my upper chest, right below my collarbones. And I just like press down firmly. And I close my eyes and I breathe and I remind myself, I'm here, I'm safe, I'm going to be okay. Using the various tools that we have at our disposal. But at the end of it all, the biggest thing is presence with the energy that we have in our bodies and not trying to push through resistance, but just being able to notice it and make a decision to release it, even by just a little bit, like turning the pressure valve a little bit. And it's like, okay, wow, a little bit less.
One of I have a couple sentences up my belt to validate my resistance, which helps me know it better and therefore release it. Some of my favorite sentences are, makes sense.
Yeah.
Another great sentence, of course you're here. Of course. And sometimes when I'm working with, not just, working with tight spots within my pelvic region, but also just stuck areas in my chest or in my throat. And sometimes when you work with these things, memories surface. And in those instances and other sentences, I say to like my little inner girl is like, oh, you didn't want that to happen. That happened. Of course you're here coming up right now. That makes sense. And that alone is enough to soften just a little bit. Just to remind yourself that you're not broken. Everything that's come up is there for a reason and it's been there to protect you. You know, like I said in the beginning of this session that we're having, I learned from middle school that neediness is not an attractive trait and that it's not lovable and it's going to push people away. And so I can see now in hindsight after being on I don't even consider this a relationship anxiety. It's like a different relationship anxiety now. Like, oh God.
Was that your angst?
I didn't let myself love with my whole heart. And to actually touch how much I love this person and how much I love being alive and how much I love myself. To touch, it's one thing to say, I love you. It's another thing to feel it. And it's another thing to feel it to the extent that it exists.
Yeah.
There's a difference between touching it and touching it to the end of it. But there is no end of it. That's the thing.
Yeah. Yeah.
And so to touch that infinite neediness, that infinite love, it'll cut right through you. And I'm feeling it right now. And I hate it.
Yeah, I know. I see you. I hear you.
Yeah.
I feel you.
Like to love what you've created and, and what's to come.
There's this whole thing about being okay with some needs never being met. Like, why would we be okay with that? But it's literally
especially
like you're infinite.
Right. I mean, it's like two things can be true at the same time always. Like try to meet your needs, and your need for the infinite by definition will never be met.
Yes.
By definition.
Exactly.
Because a lot of people who are like in the trauma communities are like, that's how we get traumatized, is when we're powerless in a situation for an indefinite period of time, and we're not supported, we're not held. When our needs aren't met for long enough, and it's the emotion of that is too much for us to handle, which by the way has to do with your capacity, which is what we're building. You dissociate, and then you have trauma held in your body. So part of it is like getting that need met, especially like if you're working with trauma in particular, it's like finding the unmet need and consciously meeting that. But there's going to come a point where, you have so much abundance in your life and you want more and you don't know what to do with that.
Yeah. Yeah.
And at that point, it's a new ball game.
It's a whole different game, because so this is not at the expense of, like you just pointed out. And thank you for that, because it's really important for anyone listening who, oh God, we've both been in this space, right?
Yeah.
Where we have to learn to communicate your needs and first connect with, what do I need? Because so many people go through decades of their lives without even knowing what they actually need, because they have been in service of other people's needs. So there is a very real necessary, like we're talking about the cogs in the process, right? Like the layers,
right. Like learning nonviolent communication is really important for people who have never had their needs met and don't know how to articulate what their needs are. You need to learn that and master it.
Yeah. Yeah. And so to even recognize your own needs, and we're talking that, you can go with the whole Maslow's hierarchy of needs or Tony Robbins' 6 human needs, like all of the different kinds of needs. It's okay. I need this, and I'm going to exercise my voice to ask for this in a clear and, not in a way that's blaming or attacking or justifying anything.
So request.
Yeah. Making requests, and also it's again, as we're building our capacity for people to take care of themselves too, and to say no. And this is one of the things that I love the most about the true spirit of kink is that there's a built-in practice, or at least there's supposed to be. Not everyone has this experience, I understand, of what do you need? Here's what I need. And how can we both have meet each other, have our needs met in this experience? And if someone says no, you trust that, okay, thank you for taking care of yourself.
Yeah.
You're not saying no because you're trying to, hurt me. You're trying to take care of yourself.
Right.
And to see that for what that is. And then be open to creative ways to have those needs met. A couple nights ago, I kind of told you this yesterday. When we were chatting, Ryan was a little quieter than I prefer during sex. And he had a big day, and anyways, all these things. So by the time we were having sex, you're just pretty quiet. And I'm like, I need that oral vocal stimulation to feel fully aroused. Because I'm like, if I hear and feel the energy through his sound, then I get more pleasure from that. And then I'm expressing more pleasure, and then he hears that and feels that, and it just goes back and forth and it builds. And I wasn't getting that. So I'm like, so afterwards I told him, when we talked about, here, what did you love? Here's, did you like when I tried this thing? And I was like, I just feel like I was missing a lot by not hearing your sounds very much tonight. And just to be able to say that. And I'll be like, you did it wrong. You're a bad boy.
You make the unconscious conscious, to name it without any blame.
Yeah. And so then last night, he afterwards, he was like, I made more sound. I'm like, thank you. I noticed that. I love it. We need to learn how to communicate. We need to know what we need and how to communicate our needs and how to help each other meet each other's needs.
Well, once you start getting needs met, you discover that they never end.
Yes, that.
Then you start touching that infinite neediness. And it's like, once you have, because there's the not ever having your needs met, and that's a limiting place to be. And so the next like empowering place after that is like, I can get my needs met. Yeah. Like that's also empowering. And so then we become more astute at doing that. And we become more astute at getting your needs met. And at some point you realize this pattern that is the neediness never ever stops. And once you can see that and be like, oh shit, there is a part of me that will never be satisfied. And can I actually just love that itself?
Yeah. And be with that.
That's what I'm hearing kind of you getting at, which is very exciting.
Yeah. And you do become more comfortable with feeling that and just being with it with more practice. And again, your capacity grows for that. I remember so many friends in my church days would wrestle so deeply with this concept of, I want more, but I shouldn't want more because my life is good. But then am I complacent? Or should I be doing this? What does God want me to do? And like, we have these desires for a beautiful purpose, just for them to be. That's purpose enough.
Yeah.
And so that these things have been just absolutely mind-blowing to me over the years of experiencing them. Yeah.
I mean, I'm really starting to understand that two things can be true. You can be deeply grateful, have reverence for the life that you have and appreciate it. And you're allowed to want even more. You're allowed to want a lot more than that.
And not only that, but the gratitude is what truly opens up for more to come.
Yeah. Yeah. Wow. It's learning to hold those two spots at the same time and walk the edge.
Yeah.
Wow.
Wow. It's a dance.
It is definitely a dance. And Preston has expressed that he wants to do more tango with me.
Oh, yay.
So excited. So excited to just like literally take this energetic dance and turn it into a physical one. How beautiful is that?
Yeah. Oh, God.
And hallelujah for a flipping of the polarity to the point where I don't even know how to lead these days. I just want to sit in bed with my chakra all day.
And so maybe that's what you best do.
I need to do that for a little while. I'm teeing up for years of not being in that place.
Yes.
I talked about discovering my sensuality at a women's retreat and how that really unlocked a lot for me. And desire started to come back. Desire, period. Not just desire for my partner, but just like the experience of desire ring. How awakening that was for me. And I think that opened up a lot for my partner as well. He mirrors me in so many ways. We're so connected in that way. And so when I talked to Luci about this, I came into her course, Come As You Are, the self-pleasure practice. And I have been using that to supplement the kind of snowballing desire that I've been starting to allow to grow. Or I guess the little flame, I guess it's more of a flame that you just start to caretake daily. And my goodness, it has done so much for me in terms of feeling fully alive. I naturally want to put on makeup more. I want to just not even to cover up any insecurities or anything, but just a desire to be an expression of what I feel inside. As I put on makeup as art, it makes me want to like buy more clothes and like be walking art all the time. I want to put on jewelry all the time. I want to buy nice shoes all the time. I want to like, I don't know. I could put feathers in my hair and like all the things. I want to see like a physical expression of the life that is moving through me lately, thanks to this incredible practice that you literally do from the inside out. So I'm so grateful. And so when Luci asked me to be an ambassador for her program, I was heck yes. I have had some brand new types of orgasms that I have never experienced before through this, just following these exercises. Very exciting. I'm going to link it in the show notes. And you have Come As You Are. And you said you also just launched a couples course, right?
That is it's an intimacy course for couples. And I'm walking them through some different energetics of desire and arousal and heightened pleasure, navigating conflict, some kinky introductory explorations, and with a fair dose of video demonstrations from us. So it's not our OnlyFans, so it will not be, there will be no nudity. Okay. But you'll get the sensuality of it and the energetics of it. And so that's a 6-week course for couples.
Amazing. So I will, and this link goes to both of them. Just check.
Yeah. So when they go to that link, it shows them all the courses. So including the shadow work course, the inner child healing, all the stuff that if they're at this point where they want to dig deeper into that, they can also do that. But they'll see all of them. They'll see all of them.
And I love 25 Days of Play because I think your macaw, when you had your macaw, was still in the background. That was what made Preston and I like obsessed. We were like, oh, okay, this is our core.
I'm so happy he was there for that.
Me too. All right, Luci, thank you so much for coming on today and for sharing your wisdom. This is invaluable to me and to all our listeners. So I'm sure we'll have you back soon.
Thank you so much for having me, and to everyone for tuning in.
Thank you. All right, everybody. Thanks for listening today, and I'll talk to you guys in the next episode.
Hey, I hope you enjoyed that episode. I just wanted to let you know that if you wanted to get support from me beyond the podcast, I'm still active in a couple places, just not the podcast and not as much as I was before. I'm still hosting a monthly call on Patreon and sharing little voice notes from my heart in there when something comes up. So it's not as consistent, but I'm still there. And if you want to come on to my community call and ask questions, I am still offering support in that place once a month. So it's $5 to $9 a month, and you get some exclusive content there. The second thing is I'm still selling all of my courses. By far, my most popular one is called Both Feet In. It's for people who are struggling with relationship anxiety, and it teaches a lot of practices that can help you gain more confidence and learn how to tolerate difficult emotions and get alternating parts of you on the same page and rewrite your stories and beliefs about love. Some of these meditations that are taught are partnered meditations, meaning I recommend you find a buddy that's also doing the course. If you need help finding a buddy, you can always email my support team, who is keeping a running list of people looking for sort of accountability partners, even while I'm on maternity leave. And you can email them at support@anxiouslovecoach.com. And lastly, if my Wizios are up, you are always free to submit me a Wizio. This is basically my pick my brain option. And you can pick my brain for $67, or I have like an emergency one for, I think it's $117. And I will make you a short video with my thoughts within the week. So if that's something you're interested in, as long as I have it turned on, it's available. I still plan to check my email. So those are the ways you can still get support. I'm probably not going to be making new podcasts for a little while. I'm not going to be on Instagram as much or writing emails. So if you want to be in contact, this is the way to do it in a way that I think is going to feel really good for me. And with that, thanks so much for tuning in and listening. I hope you enjoyed the episode, and I appreciate you so much for being a listener and a subscriber. Have a beautiful day and a beautiful week and a beautiful life. Talk to you soon. Thanks so much for listening to The Anxious Love Coach today. If you loved this episode, please hit that subscribe button, leave a review, and follow me on Instagram, TikTok, and YouTube, and maybe share it with someone that you believe might benefit from these perspectives. Please also subscribe to my email list at www.anxiouslovecoach.com, as I'm trying to reduce my reliance on social media. In exchange, you will receive my free relationship anxiety meditation and more supportive tools sent your way. If you would like to work with me, head on over to my website at, again, anxiouslovecoach.com to explore different tiers of coaching options and online programs. Thanks again for listening, and catch you in the next episode. Have a blessed day.